Welcome to the Good Shepherd and the Child podcast, where we explore the spirituality of the Christian child through the method of the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. I am your host, Carrie Mecki-Lozano. Today, we are diving into what CGS looks like in the Episcopal Church and its unique history that it has within our work, especially in CGSUSA. So I have invited Donna Turner and Anna Hurdle to join me on the podcast again, as both of them are Episcopalian and catechists and formation leaders in this work in all the levels for a very long time. So they have a lot of wisdom to share with us today. So Donna Turner has been involved in Catechesis of the Good Shepherd since 1994. She loves serving in the level 3 atrium particularly. She is a part of our formation committee and our Episcopal committee and our Methodist committee, as well as being a formation leader for level 1, 2, and 3. Anna Hurdle is a catechist and a formation leader in levels 1, 2, and 3. She is a retired elementary Montessori guide and a coordinator of CGS at her parish in Charlotte, North Carolina. Anna also serves the National Association through the Episcopal Committee and the Formation Advisory Council. I hope you enjoy. Donna and Anna, welcome to the Good Shepherd and the Child podcast.
Thank you so much, Carrie, for having us today.
Yes, thank you.
I am glad that we finally got the two of you on. We have been working on this episode for a while, so praise God that we all got here together.
Yes.
So I'm excited about our topic today because within our 32 characteristics, we talk about ecumenism and how important it is to our work. But then it's also even just within the Good Shepherd parable when we talk about the one shepherd with one sheepfold. And so I think that this is an important topic for us to lift up within how CGS manifests within different Christian denominations. So as both of you are active in the Episcopal Church and both formation leaders, I'm excited to hear about CGS, especially in the Episcopal Church, because y'all have such a beautiful history within this work.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks. And really, it's been from the very beginning of the work that Episcopalians were welcomed in by Sophia and Jana and other Christian denominations as well, too. And that really set for us this course of friendships being forged from the get-go on that. And so we have felt very welcomed in the work as well, too.
So what do you think it was that drew the Episcopalians to the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd?
Well, Carrie, I think the exact same thing that draws Roman Catholics into the work. Just this joy and wonder of looking and discovering and wandering along with the children as they reach their religious potential that Dr. Montessori first recognized back in the Barcelona experiments. And then, as we know, Sophia and Jana further developed and explored in our work as we have it today. I think exactly the same reasons. It combines the love of God with the love of children.
Yeah.
What would you add to that, Donna?
Well, I think, too, just about how Sophia writes about those, what she calls anthropological catechesis, and how it's really those universal characteristics and needs of the child in the various planes of development. And that's not restricted to any one religious tradition.
Exactly.
You know, we see that and we want this as far as for our children as well, too.
Right.
And as Episcopalians as well, too, when we look at what's important in our church as well, too, it seems that Catechesis of the Good Shepherd aligns to this very well as well, too, with that. So all of those things, relationship, covenant, care of creation, social justice, all of those things, really in the materials that we use, they speak to children no matter the tradition, really.
Right. Yeah, I really want to reiterate what you just said, Donna, that the characteristics of the child and the characteristics of God are the same across Christianity, across different denominations. I think that that's important to lift up. So what about the history? Can y'all speak into the history of CGS within the Episcopal Church? Because it's real, especially here in the USA, it's really unique and important.
Well, I was just going to say that in the first courses, and this would have been like in 1984 in St. Paul, Minnesota, there were Episcopalians in that course. And that would have been like Judy Schmidt, Carol Nyberg, Ruth Sheff, and then Red and Martha Fisher from Jackson, Mississippi. And so those people being in the course, that kind of planted seeds that really dispersed out across the country. And the Fishers, even in Jackson, Mississippi, they organized courses that ran over the next 6 summers after that course. And so that really got Episcopalians from all over the country interested in Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. That, and then Anna, talk a little bit about what it was like for us in the early days when we would all be in the course.
So I was going to add to that early part as well. It's important to note that in that early regional work in Jackson, Mississippi, the formation leaders that they brought in were Roman Catholic, and even those courses were ecumenical as well. Roman Catholics and Episcopalians were there. But what Donna is talking about in the early days of the courses, when we would have these mixed courses of Roman Catholics and Episcopalians, the Episcopalians would receive the presentations. And then during the break or at nighttime, if it was a national course, we would go over in the corner with the Book of Common Prayer. We would all gather together and we would pull out the liturgies and we would make the adaptations right there on the spot. Okay.
Right.
And so we'd be like, all right, we get this says one thing and we say another. And honestly, the liturgies are similar enough. Mm-hmm. We thought we were doing it.
Especially in level 1, like there's very subtle.
Right. Mm-hmm. So Roman Catholics say altar cloth, Episcopalians say fair linen. Those simple adaptations. And so we had this going on, and it was being repeated pretty much at every course. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so eventually, with the help of the board, the national office and the help of the board, we created a committee of adaptations to look at doing a more common adaptation as opposed to all these individual ones. So, and the other thing we looked at was looking more deeply at the adaptations, that it's not just a matter of wording, nomenclature, and so forth. And so we began a series of meetings for several years. Mm-hmm. These meetings were first planned and hosted by Tracy Gastel, and her husband, Father Bob, was on our committee as well. And we started looking more deeply at these adaptations, and we outlined a process over time that we still have in use today and it's there for other traditions to use as well as they seek to adapt the work. But 2 of the main things that came out of that process and having this process to follow, these steps to follow, first of all, the adaptations would begin with the child and end with the child. So we always had to honor the pedagogical principles, the Montessori principles that were present in the presentation. And the other part that was huge was truly understanding the Roman Catholic presentation and the Roman Catholic material, so that it wasn't just a superficial adaptation. Mm-hmm. So a really good example of that I was thinking of this morning, the liturgical calendar. Okay, so Episcopalians go to level 1 courses or level 2 courses, and they see the calendar that runs counterclockwise. Right. So the first thought for all the Episcopalians oh, in our church, it doesn't run counterclockwise. It runs clockwise. So that's an adaptation. And so not knowing the origins of the work and that was intentional, Roman Catholics then to go, well, we don't make it run counterclockwise either. That's a Maria Montessori thing. But at first glance for Episcopalians, it looked like that was an adaptation.
Right. But then when you really looked at the reason why we go counterclockwise is because God's time is not our time, not that it's a Roman Catholic thing.
Right.
Dr. Montessori left us lots of rich writing to, to help us to think about that as well, that it is intentional. It is not an adaptation.
Right.
And I think, too, that like that how we say it begins and ends with the child, that ends with the child was another piece that was really missing for us with those early adaptations, because we felt like when we left the course, well, that was the end of the process. But really, it is observing the children in their work to see, did we get this right? How is it that they're working with it? And so, that I think has been pivotal as well, too, and how the points were outlined, that they could be looked at across any Christian tradition and used as a starting point for the adaptations of things.
So I was going to say the person who really did a lot of work with this was Carol Nyberg, Caraviotas, who's retired now. But I would just like to lift her name up because she was so pivotal and instrumental in creating this.
Mm-hmm.
I've never met Carol directly, but it's funny because she taught the person who taught me. So I kind of see, like, whenever I think about like generational catechesis in regards to like how far away from Sophia are you? Right. She's within my heritage.
Yes.
But I've never met her directly, unfortunately not yet. So hopefully one day that window will open. I think it's really neat, Donna, that you were lifting up about how, well, both of y'all were lifting up how it goes back to the child and how y'all really had to focus on the reaction of the child. What a gift for y'all, though, because that's what we're all supposed to be doing. But you really were forced into making sure that y'all watch the reaction of the child. So it almost honed a skill that we all really are supposed to be honing whenever we're leaving formation.
Yes, yes.
Am I correct? It's my understanding that it's the Episcopal Church that really helped CGS spread in America, especially in the 80s when it first began here. Without the Episcopal Church embracing CGS, it might not have taken off the way it did. Is that a correct understanding?
Well, it is. And I think that for us as Episcopalians, we have a lot of freedom in really bringing a new approach into our parish. And so that's why a lot of times you could say people are always looking for the latest and the greatest. And with a lot of freedom, you can implement new things. And so there was, at the beginning of the work, a very big thrust in the Episcopal Church and in membership to the association and everything. And so I'm not exactly sure of the numbers of how many in our association in the beginning were Episcopalians, but it was a very healthy number of people and all. And so with that early growth, I think that it did help the association get started. And now, of course, it is continuing to grow, and even more so now in the Roman Catholic Church for the association as well. So, but it was very important, I think, in the history of our association.
And Carrie, adding to that history, when the National Association office moved to Chicago, that area of the country was one of the early areas of growth in both the Episcopal Church and the Roman Catholic Church. So there was just a spirit of community between the two traditions that really kind of like permeated, it modeled it for the whole National Association. And part of that was there articles about this that are available to us, but part of it was the Bishop of Chicago, Bishop Frank Griswold, who later became the presiding bishop of the United States, entered into an agreement with the Roman Catholics in that region that the two traditions would work together. And later, he was even invited to lead the American delegation at the international gathering in Assisi.
The CGS gathering in Assisi.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. I love that modeling of ecumenism that we're talking about, modeling of unity between our Christian faiths that is happening. I think that really we don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. We don't give enough energy to that. And I love that CGS has been a model to that, especially like what you were saying at the beginning of CGSUSA. That unity was important. And to Sophia, and when you learn more about Sophia, especially in regards to her studying of the Jewish faith and the, what's the word that I'm looking for? The
interfaith dialogue.
Yeah, the interfaith dialogue that she was so passionate about. I think that just led so beautifully into now what we experience within the different Christian denominations, that beautiful openness to ecumenism that she put into our very characteristics because of how important that is, that one shepherd with one sheepfold and really manifesting within that. I think it's important and we don't talk about it enough, but I'm so grateful for CGS for modeling that from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. And, you mentioned that about the word ecumenism and how in the United States, we tend to think of that as this dialogue between Christian churches. But around the world, it really has a bigger scope on that. And so in a lot of Sophia's writings, even when she's referring to Judaism, she does use that word ecumenism. And so it's in the United States, we use interfaith dialogue, but it has even a bigger scope when you think of ecumenism. And just while she was developing Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, working on that, she was also kind of on a parallel path that what she would refer to is her work on ecumenism. And she collaborated with Maria Vignani, who she called the mother of ecumenism in Italy. Mm. And so she worked on committees with her, and she was really a pioneer in the dialogue among Christian churches. But Sophia, her specialty was more that Jewish-Christian relationship on that, is looking at that. But it was even bigger than that in terms of it. And she had said that the starting point, this is what Maria Vignani said, that like the starting point for all ecumenism is that relationship between the Jews and Christians, and looking at that first. Yeah. And then from there, we can go out to the Christian churches and also. So that, I think, very interesting, that how that work was kind of going on parallel, and then how it infused and permeated our work in Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, and really opened it up to us too. So,
Carrie, she continued to talk about this, most notably at a NAMTA conference. And NAMTA is, for people who don't know, it's NAMTA, the North American Montessori Teachers Association. Mm-hmm. In earlier days, they used to have several conferences per year, and they would invite in notable Montessorians to speak, and there would always be a theme. And so in 1999, there was a conference held in Texas, and it was on the spirituality of the child, and Tina Lillig spoke, and several other notable people were there. But we had this brand new technology, and we were going to have Sophia Cavalletti speak to the group. And it was on this audio satellite thing, and we were all sitting in a big conference room, and it's like waiting and when her face came up on the screen, everybody was like, it was awesome. In the room. She was with Silvana Montanaro as well that day. But even though the topic of her entire presentation was on what has the child taught us and that sort of thing, and looking at the joy of the child as a measure of his growth or her growth, she did mention ecumenism, and not just mention it. She specifically welcomed all the Episcopalians and thanked the people for being involved in the work and sharing it with children and so forth. But she brings up a point about people with other faith traditions. And even in the beginning, when Dr. Montessori started developing work to test out to see, and materials to test out to see, do children indeed have religious potential? And she said, she came to the conclusion, yes, they do. But at the same time, she did not make that a part of the canon of Montessori, because she said, I'm Roman Catholic. This is my tradition. It is other people's work to develop this for your own faith tradition. So Sophia talked about that there are other traditions which stress different richness and propose different ways of relationship with the transcendent. And she asks, as we might often ask, to be faithful to my tradition, is that a limitation? And she hearkened us back to the basic human need of people, and that is the need to belong. So we want to belong to a family, to a culture, and so on. And to say that you are a citizen of the world is a very noble and ideal aspiration. I think a lot of parents would like to know that they're raising children who are open to all sorts of traditions and ideas. But she talked about there being a risk in it. And that risk is becoming somebody without roots and somebody who has no soil under his or her feet. So she gave us a metaphor of a tree. In nature, there are many trees, some small, some big ones. But in order to survive, the tree's roots must correspond with the tree's foliage. So the breadth of the foliage has to correspond with the size of the roots. And if there's not balance, the tree will fall down and not survive. And so using that, she talked about our traditions being our roots, the faith tradition that we are being steeped in, and our foliage, the capacity to be open and wider, to wider and wider horizons and to more ideas and more people. And both are very important. And they need to correspond. She went on to say, only if we are firmly bound to our soil, our tradition, will we be able to have a vital interchange with other cultures and traditions. That struck me the moment that I heard it. Mm-hmm. That was like part of a really, really good talk. And it was like, wow, that just speaks to us on so many levels, not just about ecumenism, but about how we are bringing up our own children.
Mm-hmm. And that too, for me, the question comes up a lot when we're giving courses and things, and they'll say, well, if this can be used in an Episcopal church or a Methodist church, or is it Catholic enough on this? And I think that what this highlights, as well as people who truly research our work, who know what it's about having those deep roots in our own traditions. So children who grow up in Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, it's not like it's on the surface. We are striving to have their roots so deep within their church. So the deepest rooted Roman Catholics, the deepest rooted Episcopalians, all because it's been adapted to their own tradition. And I think that is a really important thing. We're not saying it's good just on the surface for everybody, because that couldn't be further from the truth on this. It is very deep in those traditions specific for that child.
Right. And I think that quote that Anna was reading from Sophia from the NAPTA conference really illustrates that. I think I'll put that whole quote in the show notes so that people can read it because it's really beautiful, especially that last line that you read. Only if we are firmly bound in our soil, our tradition, will we be able to have a vital interchange with other cultures and traditions. I feel like we could sit and dissect just that one line. But yeah, because in catechesis, we do firmly go to the roots within each of our own traditions, but we also are allowed the vital interchange within each other's. That is also very beautiful and necessary as true Christians as well.
Yes.
It doesn't take away from our own faith. Like there's not less Catholic in our atrium or less Episcopalian in your atrium. It's all deeply there, but it also allows for that vital interchange. I don't know if I hope that that's not misunderstood what I am trying to say, but I think it is very beautiful.
I think you've got it spot on. And that quote, is something that in every formation course in level 3, as we talk about ecumenism and interfaith dialogue, that is something I know both Anna and I go back to in every single level 3 course that we do, and to think about that quote and all that she said there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the fact that we can have many faith traditions within one formation course really illustrates this as well. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else about CGS and the Episcopal Church that you want to lift up today?
If you look at a map of the United States and you look at where are the Episcopal churches, there's definitely a geographic pattern based on, how the country was founded and such. And so there are pockets of the country where we have rich catechesis of the Good Shepherd. They'll be having courses there, and they may not have Episcopalians in the course because it's not necessarily an area where there are a lot of Episcopal churches. But if you look at the perimeter of the country, you kind of see the migration pattern that occurred. Some people hearing this might say, well, I really haven't met many Episcopalians, or if you meet one in a course, you might think, oh, it's this, what is this?
And really, with that comes some surprise at just how similar our two traditions are,
right.
Liturgically and also. And I do want to go back to one thing that has kind of come up on this. And I think that, like, looking back in my own history in the Memphis area and how with Rebecca Roitsevich being here as well, too, her openness, including our whole community, that really fostered that great relationship, no matter what tradition we were a part of. We have all felt included and a part of the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd in the Memphis area. On that. And I think that has been for us a wonderful thing as well, too. And like at some points in our history, there's kind of like a blossoming out within the Episcopal Church, or there's been a blossoming out within the Roman Catholic Church. And it's just with the test of time and how the ups and downs of history, I think you can kind of see that even on a smaller scale in our little, the life of our community here, and just having the person who is a good shepherd for the entire community has been really a key part of it for us.
Well, Donna, that reminded me of something as well. In some of the notes guiding this discussion, looking at Sophia's description of ecumenism as striving and stretching towards union in Eucharist. Mm-hmm. That has been a struggle through the years when we do work together, national courses and so forth. And over time, I have come and we have come to realize this is a struggle that we are meant to experience. We are meant to go through this period of time because we're not there yet.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And through that, we've worked out certain, like a grace and courtesy for adults, that we must respect the rules of our traditions and our various churches for where we are at this period of time, where we are in this place and time.
Well, I was hoping that since both of you are such experienced formation leaders in all three levels, that I could ask you one of our listener questions.
We'll try.
Go for it. Go for it.
I have one listener who submitted a question that says, if one formation leader has taught most of the catechists in my area, is it better to wait for their next formation or to go to another formation from another formation leader? Will this lead to conflict or enrich our atrium?
Okay. I think this could be considered more an opinion as opposed to one right or wrong way. So is opinion okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. I would say that look at this question from two perspectives. What is best for the community would be the course, the formation leader. If it's one that has been giving courses, especially if that particular parish has been supporting these courses, it's certainly fine to keep that, to be in that same course and to be in with that same formation leader. But Donna and I, in addition to our work with the Episcopal material, our Episcopal Committee, we're both on the Formation Advisory Council. And we've worked really hard with Karen Mouthful and Mary Marioni and the other members of our committee in making sure that no matter where you go to a course, that it would be, the courses would be cohesive. You're getting the same information. You're getting even the same language as far as names of presentations and so forth.
Right.
And so, we just put a real effort in making sure that our courses are cohesive, no matter where you're taking them. And that way, if you started out there in Bernie and in a part one of a course and then moved somewhere else in the country, you could take that up, the second part, pretty seamlessly.
That's the hope.
Yeah, that's the hope on that. I mean, that is what we're really working toward on that. But, catechists are going to experience some differences in the exact way things are done. I mean, we're different formation leaders with different personalities. And I think when you're young in your catechesis experience, like in level 1, especially, that sometimes when you see a presentation done by a different person, it's almost like it's shocking because you're thinking, well, that's not exactly the way my formation leader did it.
That's not how I was shown.
That's right. And so with that, though, I think that is because when we're young in our catechesis experience, we're full of doubt about ourselves and what we're doing. And so to be able to see differences, it takes a certain amount of maturity, I think, in the catechist to kind of process, well, how they're going to move forward after that. And but that is really a point of personal growth for somebody, and that could help strengthen them because it's not like a recipe. I mean, it's not an exact procedure. What we're talking about here is Holy Spirit driven work. And so it may be a little different, but it does make me laugh because Rebecca said with her time in Rome that one day she would see Sophia do a presentation and it would have its own little intricacies. And then the next day she would see Jonna do it and it would look different. And so that going back, we're different people. And so it's not going to be exactly the same every time on that.
If it were, we would just publish a book.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Because just as with what Donna is saying with the children, we are leaving space for the work of the Holy Spirit and the child in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
As formation leaders, we do with the adult learners as well.
But there is a very special bond like between the formation leader and the participants, the catechists that are in the courses. And so I think it's common for them to say, I've had this great experience and I'd like for the catechist I'm working with to have that experience with that same formation leader. So I think that it's like seeking them out based on what their good experiences were. That is fine to do
Right.
that too. So again, it is like you've both said, this is more an opinion than it is an answer on that.
In thinking about that too, and in thinking about my own formation, I really appreciated going to a national course. A national course has a specific energy about it, and I know not everyone is able to do that. Usually at a national course, you're meeting people sometimes from all over the world. And usually there's a team of formation leaders that are just really rich and steeped in the work. And oftentimes a younger formation leader is a part of the team. And I think with the original question, if we looked at it like, what is the best for your community versus what is the best for your own self as you continue in the work. And so as many of us know, and as many of our spouses may have asked us from various times, finished? Are you done? Is that it?
Right.
Yeah. It's been 6 summers. What?
You're still doing formation? I thought you already did this level. Yeah, I think that's one of the big misunderstandings. You go to 12 days, 13 days, 14 days of formation, and you think, okay, I'm done. But no, that's just the beginning. Mm-hmm. So I think the last piece of their question of will this lead to conflict or enrich the atrium, it's almost both. It will lead to some conflict because like Donna said, we like the way that our formation leaders showed a presentation or did something, but that also can lead to a lot of enrichment, especially good conversation throughout your group. But I think this also plugs the need for formation teams. When you do a formation, you really should have 2 formation leaders. And part of the reason is so that you can see 2 different ways, 2 different styles of how someone might present something.
Right.
Yes.
And it really feeds that idea that it's not my job to be you. Which as a brand new catechist, you kind of have that feeling like I need to say exactly what you said and do exactly what you did. But there is an element of that, but there's also an element of like what you both lifted up of trusting the Holy Spirit, of letting there be room for the Holy Spirit and room for the child that's before you. Yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you both so much for doing this today and sharing your wisdom with us.
It has been a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you all for listening to this week's episode of the Good Shepherd and the Child podcast. In our show notes, you can find the quote that Anna shared in our conversation. I also have some links for some other episodes about the ecumenical nature of our work in the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. I also put a link in our show notes to the brand new book by Jana Gobi called Nurturing the Whole Child. This year is also the 40th anniversary of the United States Association of the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. So we are doing a member event that will be both live and live streamed. So there is a link in our show notes for more information about this event, and we have more information as well as registration coming very soon. This podcast is sponsored by the United States Association of the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. If you would like to know more about Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, or if you would like to become a member and support our work, please go to CGSUSA.org. Thank you all for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks. Go and fall more deeply in love with God.